The final boss fight of Sekiro will start with Genichiro. Now, not much will be different except for the Mortal Blade Strike, and this can be pretty easily dodged simply just by running around him. Sometimes he will follow this up with a follow-up strike, but this can be dodged just by keeping moving. For this phase I used the High Monk ability just because it didn't cost any Spirit Emblems. It was good for diving over him and dodging some of his attacks while dealing a decent amount of posture damage. That is how you'll probably want to fight him for this first phase, as he's relatively weak on posture. If you stay on him, get good timing down with your deflex, you'll do a good amount of posture damage on him and in the fight relatively quick. If you do have to use a Resurrect for this fight, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't want to use too many healing items on him, however, just because you should be familiar with him, and the rest of the boss fight is much harder than this, so you really want to try to conserve as much as you can going into it.
Yes, that's it. Your strength. Count, Sekiro.
Now at the beginning of Lord Ishin's fight, he says to come at him, but you don't want to. Keep your distance, use your buffs, get that ceremonial blade used, whatever you need to do. You do want to use that ceremonial blade to prepare for the next phase, but we won't be using any Spirit Emblems in this stage of the fight either. So for this stage of the fight, you'll want to hang back, and you'll want to bait him into using a couple different moves. One move he will do is he'll run to the side, and then he'll follow it up with 3 attacks. You'll want to wait until he's finished with these 3 attacks before going in, as he can redirect the third quite easily. Another move he'll do is he will charge at you, but before he does this, he'll bow his head a little. This is a good indicator that he'll be doing that move. If you have enough distance, usually it's not too much of a problem, but if you don't have that distance, jumping is a good way of blocking this attack. He'll use the Ashina Cross, but this is pretty easy to get behind and get a couple good attacks on him. You don't want to get behind him too quick. If you keep running in a circle around him, it's pretty easy to get around him. Another move he'll do is a couple of attacks followed up by a stab. Again, if you keep your distance, won't be much of an issue, and then you just come in and stab him after the stab. Basically, you'll want to just keep your distance, run in, stab him, run out. And that's basically it for the first fight. He has a couple moves, they're not too hard to learn. He'll use the same 4 or 5 if you do keep a distance from him, and it's not too hard to keep a distance from him in this phase. For this phase of the fight, we'll be using the umbrella. Again, we'll be keeping our distance and baiting him into using a certain handful of moves. The first move is a slam that will be followed up by 4 shots. You'll want to attack right at the end of the last shot and then jump immediately, as he can do some damage on you coming down. This can be tricky to time out at first, but once you get a hang of it, it's pretty easy to pull off. It's just a matter of timing. Another move that he will do is 4 shots or a couple shots followed up by an attack. For this, you'll want to move around a little bit, try not to take too much posture damage, and then attack at the end, or just attack right before your posture breaks. As the umbrella does use posture, you do want to keep a good eye on that, make sure that it doesn't break during his attacks. It's better to go for the attack than let your posture get broken and take damage for no good reason. Sometimes you'll go for the attack and it'll be successful, sometimes it won't. Now starting the third phase, he'll be pretty much identical to the second phase, except now he'll throw lightning. He usually throws it right at the beginning, and it's best to deflect this. If you can and you're in the position, you always want to deflect the lightning back, as it does a good amount of health damage and posture damage. For whatever reason, I wasn't expecting it at the beginning of this fight, and then whenever he threw it again, I wasn't in the best situation to deflect it. So you don't want to force it, but if you have it, definitely do it, because it's relatively easy, and it makes the fight a lot easier as well. But other than this, we're just basically repeating the same strategy and fighting in that way. If you need more spirit emblems, be sure to create distance using the hill, and then pop the ceremonial tanto, and a healing. Now, if you need to create distance to heal yourself, or use any other items, it's best to use the hill. You'll want to run away from him diagonally rather than directly away. This is because he does have the gunshot move, and if you run directly away from him, he'll just shoot you in the back. So you'll want to run diagonally away from him, and use the hill to create distance and use items. Once you're separated by the hill, it's easier to use an item than when you're not. This is the last fight of the game, so don't be afraid to use any of the bundled statues or any of your other bigger healing items if you need them. This fight can be very time consuming, but this is a pretty difficult fight, and this is a really easy way to take him down, so it is recommended to do it this way.
Farewell.